What is art? At the surface, this may appear to be a very simple question to answer. Whenever asked this question, a generic answer typically comes to mind. Well, art can be a painting. It may look like this. It could be a sculpture. It will look like this. Or maybe a piece of writing. It'll look like this. Simple enough. That's a fair answer. Many of the definitions in society are explained through comparison. However, not all paintings look the same, nor does every sculpture or piece of writing look the same either. How therefore can we explain why these art forms are considered art? Furthermore, how does one explain the approval of art's first candidates to be art? This form of art interpretation and definition, as a means of ancestry, may not always work. If we look at art in its earliest forms, we can identify that culture symbolized many of its characteristics. One might say that art is defined by a group of people who mutually agree that the subject matter being discussed is art. This agreement comes from a mutual acceptance of what art should portray and be. This explains why certain ideas of art currently accepted in today's society were not accepted in art's earlier history. Would contemporary art be accepted during the 1800s as it is accepted today? Since art is determined by society and culture, are there any authorities on why or how something may be considered art? Is art only defined by points of reference, comparisons to previously established artworks? If so, this wouldn't explain art's earliest definition, as it has no comparison to compare to. In order to determine the definition of art, let's take a look at different types of definitions. In terms of science or mathematics, certain concepts are defined by naturally occurring evidence. In other words, it has a particular limit to its definition expressed by nature. A number is defined as an arithmetical value expressed by a word, symbol, or figure, representing a particular quantity and used in counting and making calculations, and for showing order in a series or for identification. The definition of a number is a rigid type of definition. Existing in the world, however, are numbers that do not necessarily end in a particular quantity as numbers are defined to be. They lack a specific endpoint and a limit to what they can be defined as. As a result, they are not used commonly in society for practical use in terms of currency or quantity. They are therefore called irrational numbers. Since they no longer fit common understanding of the natural world, our culture changes its view on it. This definition is a soft type of definition. If this be the case, where does this leave art as a type of definition? It is an extra soft form. This is because art does not naturally exist in the world, and therefore it was culturally created. Its definition can only be therefore found and decided culturally. Though we change the cultural perception of irrational numbers, they still remain the same. They are numbers. However, as we change our perspective of art, then the existence of art will change as well. There may not be a scientific definition for art. However, there are qualities which have been attributed to art. While not everything humans do is art, there is nothing humans do that can't be art, given the proper context. Many argue that certain forms of art cannot be art because it does not appeal to them. Therefore, the distinction between the two great questions derive. 1. What is art? And 2. What is good art? It is important to recognize the conversation that we are having. If we are discussing what art is, art can be anything that humans do. However, if we are discussing what good art is, there is different criteria. Caveat to the definition of art is that what is produced by humans must have been created for an artistic intention. This intention must have been for the purpose of creating an aesthetic experience in its audience. This definition explains the distinction between anything humans do and what should be considered art. This explanation demonstrates why plumbing, athletics, or other things may not be considered art due to their lack of artistic intention. An artist's work may be considered good art if there is a clear goal for the creation of that artwork, if the goal was actually achieved, and if creating the artwork was worth doing. At the end of the day, it may seem futile to try to define what art and good art is. However, by defining either art or good art helps us learn more about what art means to us and understand what it means to other people. This explains why interpretation is so important to the culture of art. By offering a personal interpretation of an artwork, you bring life and identity to what that artwork may be. As we get past the definitions of what art may be in contemporary society, we find meaning in the art that we are currently producing, which brings society closer to the most important part of art, its meaning.